Greetings, brothers. Great brethren, how you doing today? Um, Hope all is well. So, a long week. Boy, it's been a long week. I hope all of you are doing well. And if you guys can, go show some love to G Dub. He's going through a few things right now. Drop some coin, you know, just show some love. All right? He's taking care of some things with his fam. All right? So, this video, let me drop this down a little bit for you guys. What is it about? All right. So this is going to be a history of logical fallacies. So MGTOW U, he's been dropping some classics since 2014. You know, I like what he does. IT guy, smart. You know, he's in a STEM field, fellow brethren. So I respect him. You know, he has a very unique mind, very funny too. So he constantly has some good content that keeps me thinking. He's always trying to better himself and be the best version of himself, and I respect him. So I got a little video, and this is a clip from MU, and I'm not going to keep on talking. Let's just drop it forward. Here we go.
Most of these ladies are not our teammates. I don't care about women like that. Me personally, myself, I don't, because I recognized a long time ago that many of them are anti-male. I will protect somebody like C. Rose because C. Rose has a track record of protecting sons and nephews. Your mic is hot, Roger. But it's like I don't care about people like that. I just don't. And I think when I talk about anger, too many dudes care and they want to punch women in the face and get women to recognize here.
See, at the end of the day, um, I'm not going to say anymore. At the end of the day, he's already wrong, but he's right. Why is he wrong? Because he's still debating and talking about this subject with a panel of women. He's recognized the fact that they're just not going to change until legal, social, economic, environmental, all changes. So it is basically a conversation of futility. It's going nowhere. It's just sitting back and screaming at a wall. Nothing's going to change. So to sit back and frustrate yourself. Now he does come to a conclusion in this. That is it's admirable, and I respect him for it. So he has a very good, good breakdown of how the WNBA was supported by 25 million. Now he said 10. It was 10 million lost, but they do put 25 million into the WNBA every single year. The NBA does. And Kyrie Irving put 1.5 million to back and guarantee lost wages of WNBA players. Not one actually came out in his defense the past couple of weeks. And shouts out to Kyrie hitting the court again. But at the end of the day, I didn't expect him to. Now he put his own salary up to make sure he guaranteed that if they wanted to actually take the time off due to surgeries and things that they had actually undergone because of the COVID concerns or their family, okay, he'll cover their salaries. It wasn't reciprocated. He got thrown under the plane wheels. That's my term. I might incorporate that. I don't know. I might incorporate it. All right. Let's get back to the video clip.
what you heard May said, and this ain't no attack against May. Let's just keep it logical. May didn't give you no evidence, but Hot Sauce did. Hot Sauce gave you documented things that black men have done. Hey, let's look at a recent thing. Black men in the in the NBA bankrolled the WNBA at a 10 million a year loss. Black women can't say nothing that they do for sons and nephews to that magnitude. Look at Jordan Peele, married to a white woman, but still made a first time black female director the most famous first time female director in history by putting her on a project he had already bankrolled. Black women don't have no claim to fame on that. So there's nothing. This is why I don't get angry because I know what it is, C. Rose and Sister George. The black woman doesn't have a documented track record to show that she even has supported.
Yeah, and you have My Brother's Keeper. If you guys remember that program that came out in 2014, I remember, and that was basically shot down because different benefits and opportunities would actually be handed to so-called black boys and young men, specifically in the field of STEM. So, yeah, that he's saying what he got to say. Let's get back into it.
Sons and nephews on anything. Now, privately, somewhere in Wisconsin, somewhere in New York, maybe you got 50 women who have done something. But there's no public example of black women since the 90s doing something for sons and nephews. It's just not. We created the Pullman Union back in the day. We created the first National Black Economics Women Convention. Black women didn't do that for themselves, C. Rose. White women didn't do that, Sister George. These evil, low-life black men did that. So guess what? When the first black woman to fly around the world was bankrolled by a black newspaper man with his money, when Mr. C.J. Walker took his newspaper money out of St. Louis and Denver.
You must understand that Tito has a good video on C.J. Walker, and it's on Whack History series. Check that out. It goes in depth. There's a lot that you don't know about C.J. Walker that they're not gonna put in the movies. There's a reason why they call him Madam C.J. But I digress. Let's get back into what he's saying.
To bankroll Miss Breedlove and turn her into the icon y'all love. Nobody gives credit for that. So Miss May is just going to make a speech to us. She's just going to wag her finger and say what should happen because our women want us to create something that they can destroy. Get that through your heads. Look, I'm gonna end it.
You
Our
sound bitter.
women,
That just
our
sounds bitter.
women
Hold
are
on, May. Let's let him finish.
That's the first one. You sound bitter. Remember, we talked about this. What? Ooh, 2014. It was 2014. We talked about this. You have do you sound bitter? Someone's hurt you. Who left you? These are all aspects of logical fallacies. Okay. And we're going to go into the logical fallacies in a little bit. So you brothers can best be prepared. So you don't have to actually have these conversations anymore. At the end of the day, I want you to understand why, how, when, where, and what direction these conversations are coming from. All right? Simple. All right, let's get back into it. I don't want you being misled, and I also don't want you to have to deal with frustrations from going through the same conversations that we've had in 2014. It's about to be 2023 in a few more weeks. And 10 years ago, these same conversations were being had. Do not have these conversations, brothers, for the next 10 years. Don't do it. All right? Now, some people like to have these conversations because it makes them money. It's just a cash grab. They do not really care. about coming to any type of conclusive end. They don't. This is just a cash grab. It's a way for them to come on and flex their egotistical muscles, for them to posture, for them, and he said this, for them just to complain, talk down, finger wag, and disrespect so called black men virtually. You have to get to a point where you're like, I'm not going to listen to that anymore, and just turn the channel off. Indifference is okay. It's not bad. It's good to have. It's not a bad thing, brothers. Trust me. All right. Let's mute that, and let's get back into it.
Then I'm going to let you respond, and then we'll move on.
Our women want us to create so they can come in and destroy it. Meanwhile, they ain't took over the education system from that white woman. They ain't took over the white woman from all these director positions. They ain't doing none of that. So guess what? I'm not angry about it because I realized a long time ago, the white woman is correct. The black woman will destroy this community for her, and she will pick off the top producing black men as she has done in every country. I'm not angry.
Wow.
Like I said, I understand there's importance for black men and black women both to take accountability. I understand there seems to be a chicken and the egg situation, and it's not easily resolved. I get it. But at the same time, so many of the men who come to the conversation, they're disgusted. They have reached their end. They have nothing good.
That's an appeal to pity. All right. If you guys don't understand that, that is our first logical fallacy. Appeal to pity attempts to sway a listener's opinion by provoking them emotionality. All right. So they're trying to actually bring you down to the emotional level. Say, oh, I understand that black men are going through what they're going through, and I understand that, we just can't see eye to eye, and I understand that it's jacked up. That's an appeal to pity. All right. Don't fall for that logical fallacy. All right. Don't you fall for it. Okay. Don't fall for it. Let's get back into it.
Good to say about black women. They have all the evidence built up that black women are trash and will always be trash. And there is no black community to be saved. We all suck. Our race sucks. That's what I keep seeing come to the table to have actual discussion. Those types. Just like that brother who just spoke. It's like disgust, and there's nothing good. And I don't come from that place.
Speak to that for a minute?
Let me finish.
Hold on, let
I
her
don't
finish.
come from that place. I don't come from that place. And I just want to throw this out there too. I think too much of the conversation is always focused on the ghetto. It's always focused on the lower.
Okay, she's giving an argument, but she's not actually saying anything. All right, just keep on going. Let's see what she's doing.
Class. It's always focused on the poverty and the Pookie and the Ray Ray and this obsession with baby mamas. I think that people need to elevate their space in life so they start seeing different things in their consciousness. There are not, in my world, a whole bunch of baby mamas running around. I don't see whatever.
That's a lie. That's an ardent lie. At the end of the day, the stats prove otherwise. You can go and look at the Family Center. You have United States Health and Family. You can go and look at the statistics by just going to your U.S. Census Department. And you can look at the breakdown of family formation and structures. And you'll see the majority of black families are single mother family. Well, technically, you can't be a single mother. It's a broken family. So it would be a single family structure. What is it? A one parent household. I think that's a proper term. I think they call that illegitimate child because you're not born through marriage. It's been a while since I've actually looked at the terms, but a large majority of so-called black families, specifically the new formations, I'm talking brand new. I'm not talking about people that are in the 80s and 70s and 90s. They actually had a high rate of marriage. This is your children born during the boomer era, your Korean War veterans coming back, your World War II veterans coming back and having children. No, I'm not talking about those eras. I'm talking about someone currently within the maternalistic age, within the proper birthing age and birth cycle, 20s, late teens, and possibly up to 31, 32, within healthy births of children. And that would be a majority of your children are born to single mother households. That's not a mistake, that's a decision based on policies, laws, actions. And those actions are supported by government mandates, by set asides, etc., etc., etc. It is what it is. So let's get back into her argument, because she's not actually saying anything towards what was originally discussed. She's not talking about how they support so-called youth, young boys and men. No. She's just logical fallacies. She's using red herrings. She's doing everything, but she's not actually talking about the subject that he originally brought up. Don't get fooled by the okie doke, brothers.
People are seeing in their community. I don't see none of that. I don't see the drug dealer. I've elevated my space in life, and I think that more Black folks need to do that. And we have a whole tradition of Black African Americans who are on code, been on code, very similar to how Jewish people run their households and their community, have always been on code. They call them strivers. They've been here forever in America. We ignore those people and their sense of function, and we just focus on the ghetto. And I think that's a problem too. So that's my thought.
One.
So basically he said, once again, let's see. Hold on. Let's go back.
Always been on code. They call them strivers. They've been here forever in America. We ignore those people and their sense of function, and we just focus on the ghetto. And I think that's a problem too. So that's my thought.
One.
So there you go. Now let's get through all the logical fallacies so you guys will never, ever have to actually be tricked into these long diatribes or conversations about nothing. I don't want you having these conversations, brothers. I'm sick and tired of them. Give me a second to refresh myself. I'll be right back. Okay. First one. You have formal, bad reason fallacy, propositional fallacies, syllogistic fallacies, quantification fallacies, informal, ad hominem. Now, you guys all know ad hominem. Okay. So let's go through some of the fallacies right now. These are the most common. Ad hominem. An ad hominem fallacy is one that attempts to invalidate the opponent's position based on personal trait or fact about the opponent rather than through logic. You've been to prison. How could you know anything? I mean, clearly, you're not very moral. And this is what will usually actually be stated to so-called Black men that have gone to prison due to economic burdens or hardships, that they just didn't receive different economic impacts and different economic underpasses, different economic opportunities. So they had to actually take to the streets in order to survive. So I agree. There's some things that was taken too far, and there's some things they did that were wrong. All right. And they've actually done their time. They made their peace. They've paid all parties for what they've done wrong. They've served their time. It doesn't matter that they've actually been, and look, we did the video on in what is it, the National You have the national exoneration, all right, in which I got to donate again to. I donate every year. And they said that there's a large rate, and I've dropped the article. You guys can go watch that video again, and it gives you every single detail. It came out September 2022. It tells you that you have an inordinately large amount of so-called black men that are falsely charged for crimes. Yes, and they're exonerated, and some are even getting their records expunged. All right, a complete innocence. And it's an innocence project. They have it in California at UC Irvine. They also have it at Michigan. They also have it all throughout the states. Give me a second. All right, had to take a little break. Let's move that. All right, so get that off the screen. So he went to jail. So at the end of the day, they'll use that as barometer for his honor, his ethics, when you don't know all the circumstances. He could have been falsely charged for a crime that he committed. So he's been to jail. Or another one that's classic is he's just a day laborer, or he didn't go to college. How many of your great grandfathers with a 4th grade education came out of Musk Corner, Georgia, or Willacoochee, Mississippi, or wherever they came from, up north, with skills and trades, and they actually had wisdom that they brought down and handed down to their family members? Well, many of them. So it matters not that your great grandfather had a 4th grade education and had a skill or a trade. Nope. Doesn't matter. What matters is what wisdom and knowledge he's acquired from 4th grade to 50 to 40 to 30. That's all. So the ad hominem, they would say, oh, well, he's just a carpenter. Oh, well, he's just a factory worker. Oh, he's a former criminal. Oh, well, he's this, he's that. All right. That's stupid. All right. And what you're going to have is women that are going to try to attack you with ad hominem statement based on, one is your profession. The second thing is your lack of a specific degree or educational standard. Now, quite a few so-called black men have degrees, but they still are going to try to find an ad hominem statement against those guys. If a guy becomes a lawyer, well, yeah, he knows the law, but he doesn't know every law. It's a slippery slope. All right. Red herring. Shift the focus from debate at the hand by introducing a relevant point. So, you must be gay. Now, of course, that actually is an attack on your sexuality, but that's also a red herring. All right. So they'll say things like you must be gay, or another thing is you must not get woman, things of that nature. You can have a conversation about, let's say you have a conversation about something completely irrelevant. You're talking about city construction and how certain cities have very poor sewage systems and civil engineering structures, and why you have such poor response time because of corruption in that city and city council. And it's just the city have lead pipes, and your storm drain system is outdated. It was made in the 1800s. And you say, well, this city is in bad need of repair and upgrade, and it's just so corrupt. And they say, oh, you must be gay. Where does that come from? Someone hurt you. Because guess what? The mayor might be a woman. And they're going to try to attack you based on the fact that You're going against the great womosphere. The womosphere, you're going against it. So, oh, well, he can't attack her because, I mean, there's other mayors that came behind, and he would say the same thing. That guy is speaking from a position of understanding because what he might have done previous towards him making a statement, he might have actually been fresh out of high school. He might have actually got a job working as a city ground crew. You never know. And he might have actually fixed storm drains and going to lift up the little manholes and going down and actually tested the pH levels, and because you have to actually do city maintenance and upkeep of your storm drains and your lid covers and manhole covers and things of that nature. They do it every single year, and they go with the spray paint and they spray the area to show that what's been expected and make sure that the steam vents and things of that nature with the boiler systems are functional. Okay, so they have to actually go and mark all those things off before the winter hits. So he may have done that. You know, he didn't really know everything he was doing, but he did have to actually go physically and go and work for the city and fix roads and lift up those manhole covers and write down on inspection sheets. And he had to learn OSHA standards and things of that nature. So he had to do all that. So he knows a little bit. All right. And you're just completely cutting him off because you don't want to be wrong. That woman doesn't. Because you are going against her God. Her God is femininity, and it can't ever be wrong. And if you're challenging her God and her idol, then you're challenging her. And so she's going to attack by calling you gay. It's red herring. It's irrelevant too. And never let someone sway the position. You simply stay on the position and you say, well, yep, the storm drain's still messed up and the city still is not properly maintained. All right. The best thing is not even to engage in that conversation to begin with. Straw man argument. Okay. It's a hyperbolic. So hyperbolic is almost like what Stephen A. Smith does. All right. Not a euphemism, which is a exaggeration. But hyperbolic is like when he talked about Kwame Brown, you know how he would go on his tangents. Kwame Brown is a bum, or is it this or that? You know, he's over the top. He's a scrub. He's this, he's that. And, you know, Kwame Brown, he got up to the league. He played, you know, had a good career, played 10 years. I saw him play for the Pistons. He actually put up like 9-10 points a game, did his thing. At the end of the day, you know, he's going to go over the top. He's going to be extra with his statement. An accurate version of opposition, opposition rather than their actual argument. All right. So basically, they're going to just stretch they're not even going to stretch the truth. They're going to go above and beyond anything. It's not even going to make any sense. You see people that are completely attached to their emotions when they do hyperbolic statements. For instance, they'll talk about how Kobe Bryant is the best basketball player ever, right? But they're from California, so they always had a bias, and it's okay. You know, they can think he's the best basketball player of all time. Hey, I'm fine with that. Many experts put him at the 11th spot. Some put him at the 14th. But they'll say that he's greater than Michael Jordan. They'll say he's greater than Kareem. Now, they'll say he's the best Laker. He got 5 rings. Kareem got 5 with the Lakers also. But they'll just be above and beyond what he actually was. They'll just say, oh, well, you know, he was the best shooter ever. He never missed. He was clutch. But when you go and look at the numbers and the facts and the data, he wasn't as efficient in the clutch. He missed a lot of shots. He was career 40%. He had some years that he didn't make the playoffs. It's a lot of things. But at the end of the day, Kobe Bryant is the greatest thing ever to them in their eyes. So they have a built-in bias, and that's okay. Sports fans or fanatics are going to love what they love. And you just sit back and say, okay, well, that's what he feels. And you just keep it pushing. And that's what they feel. So you don't argue with someone that's fanatic. Equivocation. Equivocation is a statement crafted to mislead or confuse readers or listeners by using multiple meanings or interpretations of a word or simply through unclear phrasing. Now, that's called witch speak. So witches have double speak. All right. It's equivocation. So they'll often use misleading statements. They'll try to confuse. They'll try to spin arguments that have no relevance with the conversation at hand, often just to confuse and waste time. All right. And they're never going to talk about the subject that you're originally discussing. They're always going to try to bring it down to a lower level, which has no purpose at all. And it's usually going to have attacks on your masculinity. It's often going to have facts that can't be verified, and they will not use facts or data. They're not going to say, well, go to cdc.gov. They're not going to say, well, this paper from academia.edu, which is a doctoral thesis at University of Wisconsin-Madison on the boy problem that deals with educational matriculation of young boys and why they drop out of school. It was done by such and such and such and such and funded by a grant from the such and such and such and such foundation. Nope. They're not going to say this 10-year research that was actually done by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Nope. They're not going to do that. They're going to talk about things that cannot be verified, substantiated, are ethereal, emotional, have no backing, are based on emotionalism. It's based on conjecture. It's based on hearsay, speculation. And you all know in court, you can't use hearsay. You can't use it. So they're going to actually use all these different misleading tactics and deceptive tactics to sway the conversation completely off what it was originally on. And they're going to say things that are vague and nebulous because they don't really know what they're talking about. They're just there to cause confusion. All right, slippery slope. Slippery slope fallacy. The arguer claims a specific series of events will follow one starting point, typically with no supporting evidence for this chain of events. Okay, that's simple. All right. Guess what? If black men clean up their community, and let me get a drink of water before I say this. Give me a break for 1 second. If black men clean up their community, okay, and come back and they rebuild and they build up the community again and do this and that and do this and that and do this and that, then we'll have Black Wall Street again. Now, what they're not going to do is build all these different, what you call it, logical fallacies, all right? These specific series of events that are supposed to somehow interconnect. Okay? They have this vague and nebulous and weird starting point, and they'll have no evidence towards how this chain of events is actually going to actually occur. They're just going to say, hey, this will occur because it did occur. But when you actually sit back had taken another drink of water. When you sit back and you actually really look at what made Black communities thrive, well, one of the factors were segregated policies. All right. Second factor was land. So you had a lot of so-called Black men that had land and they actually farmed. So farming was one of the congruent money making avenues that so-called Black men were actually involved in. They grew everything from squash to turnips to their own poultry and their own wheat, maize, what have you. They had their own production of their own foods. They also, during a specific period, were the main ones that were actually transporting goods across county lines. Most of your truck drivers originally were so-called Black men. All right. They were actually handed the delivery jobs across state lines for the goods and services, which is how the fast food industry, specifically with the Rear Window, actually came into existence due to many segregated policies where states did not want so-called Black men being able to enter into their establishment and truck drivers. So they would tell them to go around back and they would create a little window which they can hand them the food. All right. You also had a gold era where you had a lot of so-called Black men that were able to turn businesses like lumber, which created everything from your churches to your HBCUs. You did have some grants that were issued, often on some of the worst land, like FAMU. You had a lot of snakes that were on FAMU's campus, and they had to basically kick most of the snakes off the land, which is why they have the rattlesnake as their logo. And many of your HBCUs were actually originally for women. All right. But the men were the ones that actually built up those campuses. And we did a video on places like Hampton Institute for Women, Spelman, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right. You had the postal savings system, which many so-called farmers and many guys that worked as metal workers for shipyards and dockyards, often ununionized, all right, because it was hard for them to get union jobs, but they still had skills. And a lot of Europeans coming in didn't actually have the skills. So they actually established the state-funded universities and colleges, land grant, which they taxed so-called Black men and denied them into state universities and colleges. All right. But these so-called Black men had the skills, so they worked as your metal workers, your metallurgists, your iron workers. They worked in your downtowns, building your steel buildings, your bridges, okay, building your post offices, again with the postal savings system, your Freedmen Bank. And you had a lot of banks that were rife with corruption with the banking issues in 1890. Okay, also in 1913, and then again in 1929. All right. But they had businesses, trucking, buses, lumber yards, food. They also had come into great swaths of land that they discussed in numerous books, one of which was White Trash, and it talked about the millions of acres of land that were acquired by so-called Black men from 1840, excuse me, to 1900. Okay. Many of this land was then eventually seized. Some was sold off by the descendants of so-called Black men that acquired it. When they pass away, oftentimes their grandchildren, things of that nature, sold their land off. Some of it was lost through cronyism, through different counties, and then parcel out to incoming Europeans. Okay, but land is power, and you also had the expansion of oil rights. So in places like Texas and Oklahoma, you had so-called black Indians or Native Americans that went out there, and they were able to tap oil, and some became very wealthy, very wealthy. Not just with Tulsa, but Norman and all other types of cities that you guys have probably never. And I did a video about Oklahoma a long time ago. If I could find it, I'll find it. But for the most part, you had an era where there was a lot of wealth that was transferred in between the hands of so-called black men to black men. All right. So, for the most part, that logical fallacy does not have substantiated claim, and the chain of events are always vague and nebulous and off because it took a massive undertaking for so-called black men to actually build up all those different towns. The cooperation. Yeah. Yep. And they also had segregative policies in place, which do not exist right now. So these are things that are not going to be taken into effect. All right. Hasty generalization. A hasty generalization is a statement made after consideration, just one or a few examples, rather than relying on more extensive research to back up a claim. Okay. You have to do sufficient research. All right. You can't just say, hey, I'm going to use bias. All right. You have people that they have confirmation bias and they say, oh, well, it supports what I feel. So this is what I'm going to stand on. But at the end of the day, you didn't do research. You just went on Google for 5 seconds, or probably even a second, and looked at the first article. It felt right for the woman to say it. So she said it. She feels the world, brothers. So she's going to attach herself to something that's hasty. It's generalization. It supports her belief, her feelings, and you don't want to argue someone's feelings in their hasty generalizations because they're going to stick on that issue. Well, according to this, thus and so. Nope, avoid that. All right. Moving down the list. Appeal to authority. The arguer claims the authority figure expertise to support a claim despite this expertise being irrelevant or overstated. So, what's that mean? Well, hey, the person literally is just going to say they support this person because, well, they're the expert, even though this expert has been proven to be wrong. Now, this expert that they deem to be an expert may have the most vitriolic and hateful statements and speeches about so-called black men and boys, but they're still going to support them. And brothers are going to sit back and they're going to talk about how this person is proven to actually show disdain and be cavalier and disrespectful to so-called black men and boys and things of that nature. But they're just going to continue to say, well, they're the expert and I support what they say. Keep it running. Just keep on moving away from that person. Again, you should not be having a conversation with them because the second they do this, you already know they're practicing logical fallacies. Avoid. Okay. Now they completely are going to say, okay, for instance, you'll see someone like, what's that lady's name? She said something like all black boys that are infants should be aborted. Okay, because they're going to eventually turn out to be good for nothings. Doggone. It was so ridiculous and ludicrous. And you guys know who I'm talking about. I can't think of her name, but it's the lady with the big forehead. Doggone, what's her name? But she's on TV now, and she said that they should all be aborted. Okay, basically matricide and fanticide. And this is a woman that you're taking debates and roundtables with? I mean, she doesn't even think you should exist. Why are you conversating with her? That is a relevant or overstated statement. All right. It's also a hateful statement. False dilemma. False dichotomy claims that are only two options in a given situation. Often these two options are extreme opposites of each other, failing to acknowledge that the other, more reasonable option exists. Okay, if you don't support my decision, you were never really my friend. Now, this is a interesting one because you'll see false dilemma being used. If you don't support Black women, okay, you won't support this decision. You should be all for Black women and girls, Black girl magic, X, Y, and Z. Okay, that's a false dilemma. All right. And you must know that when they actually use that false dilemma, avoid conversation with them. You should not be on a panel in general. And this is why I'm not on panel discussions, discussing and debating and arguing. Because at the end of the day, the brothers, their blood pressure just gets up. They argue. It's good entertainment. They can get some coins from it. Go ahead. Okay. It's not going to do anything. It's not going to solve anything. It's just talking. And enough time has gone to where you've talked. I'm just saying. Bandwagon fallacy. The arguer claims that a certain action is the right thing to do because it's popular. For instance, your parents always said, hey, if everybody jumps off a bridge, are you going to do it too? He's like, no, I ain't going to jump off a bridge. Well, just because something is popular and it's trendy, but it's wrong. Now, whether you are from a religious standpoint, let's say you follow the Old Testament, right? You're a Hebrew Israelite, you follow the Torah, or you are a believer of Islam, you follow the Quran, all right? And the Quran says, and the Torah says that, you shouldn't murder your children. You shouldn't do it, all right? But this law says that if you get a little bit angry and depressed, you can murder your kids, and it's perfectly excusable. No. Murder's murder. Just like you shouldn't run up into an elderly community and murder an elder person. No. You shouldn't be murdering people if you believe in your religious principles. Thou shalt not kill. All right. But if you try to warp it to change to what you are currently legally constructing, to say, oh, well, look, this is a law and you could do this now. But even though it's not morally right, religiously, it's still the right thing legally. Just because something's right legally doesn't mean it is a just thing. The law can often be wrong. Trust me. There's numerous laws, like some of the laws that existed in 1700 that aren't right. There's some laws that said that children could be worked for labor in factories. You had the transportation or the spiriting. Many of you guys remember Kidnapped. Kidnapped is a very long book. It's about a boy being kidnapped, spirited away. And you had numerous examples of this where young boys and girls were spirited away. Some were actually put into sex trafficking, the women, the girls, into brothels. And a lot of your brothels in the Caribbeans were run by powerful madams. Sailors would often frequent these places. Naval men and things of that nature from different royal navies would frequent these places and have sex with these young girls that were spirited away. Tragic. And the madams were very powerful. Some of these young girls were stricken with different venereal diseases, and some did not last past their bondage or term that they were supposed to serve underneath these different houses of ill repute. So some of them went in and they never got out. They died before they were 15, 16. All right. And this is something that occurred, and it was vicious. And you also had these different houses in Louisiana, in Mississippi, in New York. So there's a history that actually discusses prostitution in America and the use of spiriting young girls away from Europe, okay, forcing them to work in these brothels and sex houses and things of that nature. And it's wrong. But legally, it could be done. It was wrong. Okay. And you would train some of the girls to play different instruments, and you would set a date. And once that date was set, you can go and entertain those different services. Now, it was wrong. Okay. And many of those girls didn't survive. Sex trafficking was a major issue, and the major key components were your heads of different families throughout Europe, and quite a bit of women were involved in those trafficking of young girls. Now, is that wrong? Yes. But legally, was it right? Yep. It was right because it was allowed. All right. And then you also had young kids, thanks to the new labor laws, that were forced to work in labor camps. You have women's camps throughout Canada, and me and G-Dub talked about this, where they would send over their prisoners, and they would force these women to work in labor camps. Kids were forced to work in factories. Many got their hands chopped off, and there's mass grave sites outside of different factories where kids were just used mercilessly. And they were often used much longer because they could keep them in bondage for 25 to almost 30 years. So they were forced to work 20, 30 years to pay for the patches. And some of them were stolen, forced over. Some of them were given trumped up charges. Now, some kids did it, they were involved in street gangs, and they were hooligans and things of that nature. Yeah, okay, that did occur. But often, there were some children that just were caught up in that web. And there's a very dark history as pertains to child labor here in the United States, and child sex trafficking and prostitution here in the United States that no one really wants to discuss. But it occurred. So at the end of the day, that logical fallacy, bandwagon fallacy, just because something is popular at the time doesn't mean it's right. Appeal to ignorance. Appeal to ignorance is a claim that something must be true because that's been proven false. It can also be a claim that something must be false because it has been proven true. This is also known as a burden of proof fallacy. Okay, so they'll discuss things that are ethereal, how so-called black men can do this and that, but they'll have no tangible evidence. They'll say that we are monsters and this and that, and all the evidence will prove otherwise. We take care of our families and look out for our people and make sure that everything is okay. But they'll make us out to be the boogeyman. Okay. Circular arguments is one that uses the same statement as both the premise and conclusion. And an example is peppers are the easiest vegetable to grow because I think peppers are the easiest vegetables to grow. So that doesn't have any tangible or logical base. Why are peppers the easiest to grow? Well, because I say they're the easiest to grow. So all black men are dogs, or all black men are, just awful people because I say they're awful people. Okay, it's a circular argument, and you got to know when you're actually having a circular argument done on you, and you have to be able to attack it. And just, again, you should not be having these conversations and arguments with people. Sunk cost fallacy. When a sunk cost fallacy, the argument justifies their decision to continue a specific course of action by the amount of time and money they've already spent on it. So they'll say, well, look, we've been putting money into black women's education since the 1800s, 1700s. I mean, we established Hampton Institute for Women. We had grants. We had finishing schools. We did this and that. I mean, we might as well just keep on the same path, because at the end of the day, what else are we going to do? They're never going to actually give you an example of how you can actually improve or upgrade something. So they'll say, well, the city is messed up. I mean, you might as well just keep on funding things the way they are. I mean, we shouldn't, the lights turn on to city lights. You may not have the best roads and all, but we should just keep on continuing the bad road programs and things of that nature. But we shouldn't be defunding certain areas that aren't actually yielding any results. They're just yielding corruption and things that they're going to keep on trying to keep you going down the same path of irrelevancy and destruction because you've always done it. Don't listen to these people. And the last two, causal fallacy. A causal fallacy is one that implies relationships between two things where one can actually be proven. And appeal to hypocrisy. An appeal to hypocrisy, also known as a quote, cool fallacy. It's a rebuttal that responds to one claim with reactive criticism rather than with a response to the claim itself. Here's an example. You don't have enough experience to be the new leader. Well, neither do you. Okay. And at the end of the day, they're going to use that appeal to hypocrisy to argue for no reason, chastise, ridicule, okay, and they're going to get loud and they're going to be over the top. And you must understand these different elements of logical fallacies because these are the common ones and they're going to use them. Okay. Now, we didn't actually go through the ones where they actually attack your sexuality. We just briefly discussed that. But they understand that you are not so-called gay, but they're going to use that claim against you because it's a disrespect and a slight to you. But the hypocrisy is simple. They don't have to have any type of backing or logic or wisdom or understanding. They can just simply run off at the mouth and really say nothing and just keep the conversation going nowhere and just be as hypocritical as possible and dead any conversation. So that's the hour. Hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving. And until we meet again, brothers, I don't know when I'll be doing another one of these because I am busy. I got something that I'm doing. It's really complicated and difficult. And I need you guys to actually show me some love. Just give me some encouragement when I go through this. And it ain't easy. But thank you guys for listening. And enjoy the rest of your November. If I don't check back in until December, I might even actually drop a video until January. I don't know. But keep your heads up, brothers. I love y'all. I'm out. Peace.